Hello, and welcome to the Investor Guys Podcast, the ultimate podcast for serious real estate investors in the know. Join your host, Bill Barnett and Kevin Mills, as they share their expert insights, strategies, and tips to help you succeed in the world of real estate investing. Get ready to level up your investment game with the Investor Guys Podcast. And now, here are your hosts, Bill Barnett and Kevin Mills.
And we are back with another episode of the Investor Guys Podcast. How you doing, Bill?
I am doing excellent, sir. Good to see you as always. Welcome everybody to the Investor Guys Podcast. Today, we are going to dedicate the entire show to where Kevin lives now, which is one of my favorite places on the planet, which is the state of Florida, and why you should be investing in Florida, why it's a great place to be, and some of the specific markets that you can look at. And you are down, I love South Florida. In fact, one of my favorite spots on the planet is Key West, which is as far as
mine as well. And
you can't get any further south in the U.S.
as Bill mentioned, we're doing Florida today. Now, this is the fourth show in a series of shows on strong markets. We're going to do a total of 5 shows. We're going to run all back to back to back. So this is number 4. Where we are covering strong cities for investment. And we would be remiss if we had not mentioned the 2 fastest growing states, which is Texas, where Bill is from, and Florida, where I'm now living. I shouldn't say from where Texas is where Bill is living. He's not from Texas. And ironically, Texas is one of my favorite places as well. I love the Dallas area. One of my favorite, I consider it a second home. I'm there that much. Or used to be there that much. Coronavirus kind of changed things up a little bit for everybody. Florida surpassed Texas at the end of 2019 as the fastest growing state in the United States. In fact, Florida is now the 3rd largest state. It is larger than New York, the size of New York as far as population goes. We have in the state of Florida many large and famous cities. I mean, from Miami, which everybody knows about, to Fort Lauderdale, to Palm Beach, West Palm Beach, which is the area that I live in, Orlando, Daytona, Tallahassee, Jacksonville, Tampa, St. Petersburg, Fort Myers, Sarasota. There are so many different, Tallahassee, Gainesville. There's so many cities in Florida, and one of my favorite is actually St. Augustine, which is the oldest city in America. It was 1550 or something like that. It's that old. Lots of different things to focus on. Now, we spoke a little bit on a previous show about Space Coast, and Space Coast is one of my favorites, but we're not going to waste time on Space Coast in the show because we already talked about it. Central Florida is something that's often overlooked, and everybody, just like Bill said, they love South Florida. And it's funny because everybody plans on moving down to South Florida when they come here, and they get to South Florida and they realize how busy it is and how many people there are and how crazy everybody drives, and they do drive crazy. And they end up moving back up to halfway up the state. So Port St. Lucie area, all the way to Orlando, all the way to midway up the Gulf Coast. We call those halfbacks, because they went halfway back up the state. So halfback area is actually a great place to invest. I was in Port St. Lucie yesterday actually looking at office space. It is a booming area. New construction everywhere, everything from warehouses to malls to new houses. It doesn't quite fit into the Central Florida area. Central Florida is the Orlando area. Orlando and Central Florida, Bill, I've told you this statistic before, 1,000 people a day before coronavirus were moving into Central Florida. That number is probably going to get even greater after the coronavirus, when just people have had enough. We see license plates from all over the country. Normally in Florida, we're seeing a lot more than we normally see because there's that many people just draining into Florida. To put that into perspective for you guys, we'll go ahead and focus on Orlando for a minute. To put that in perspective for you, Orlando will be between 5 and 6 million people within the next 10 years. So by 2030, you're talking about a city that's going to have 5 to 6 million people, and a city that has plenty of room to grow out because it is right in the middle of the state. There is no ocean to keep it from growing out. There is no anything to keep it from growing all the way far as west is the Gulf Coast, and then all the way far east as the Atlantic coast. Now, there's already cities in between both of those things, so it's easy for them to start connecting the dots. I have been recommending Orlando for a few years, and it is one of my strongest recommendations now, just because of the amount of growth that's going on. Now, I don't have to tell you, Orlando, Disney World, Universal Studios, SeaWorld, all the water parks that go with it, Hurricane Harbor, SeaWorld has the top-rated water park in the nation. I know Schlitterbahn wants to keep that, but I think it's actually SeaWorld. Fun spot. It's just
last week.
Go ahead.
My boys were down there. My boys were down in Orlando last weekend, and they came down and you know, one of the things that no matter when you're listening to this, we're in late October. Florida's wide open, and so they went to all of the parks and just had an absolute blast down there. So I didn't want to forget to tell you that they came down and did a little park tour.
Should have come with them and we could have hung out. But yeah, and Disney World isn't just Disney World. Disney World is Hollywood Studios. Disney World is Epcot. Disney is about 5 different parks. Universal is the same way. SeaWorld is about 3 or 4 different parks. Also, Orlando, the convention center is massive. Orlando, I think, is second only to Las Vegas as far as destinations for conventions. In Orlando, they literally flip-flop. Many companies will do Vegas one year and they'll do Orlando the next year, and they'll flip-flop back and forth. And one of the things that my wife and I always joke about is Orlando is like Las Vegas for families. There is just literally no end to entertainment and things that you can do. Restaurants, just activities, recreational activities. There's just no end to it. And it's a 45-minute drive to the beach from Orlando. So Orlando is just blowing up like crazy. That would be my top pick for Florida. My second pick would be Space Coast.
Time out.
Oh, sorry. Time for a break? Not paying attention. All right. We're back in a minute.
Our city number 2 right after the break. Make sure to hang around for more Investor Guys podcasts. We will see you on the other side.
Thank you for watching the Investor Guys podcast.
Absolution X, limited editions, lifestyle apparel like none other. Get yours today at absolutionx.com.
Live the resort lifestyle every day with Cayman K. The perfect pieces for every wardrobe. Shop the entire Cayman K collection and find your favorites. Find all our styles at caymank.com.
Get ready for power, for success, for solutions and answers. It's all in one place, www.reallykevin.com. Education, opportunities, coaching, and so much more.
And we're back. Sorry, I was on a roll and lost track of time there. My timer actually went dark, so I didn't notice the time. So Orlando's my top pick. Space Coast is within a 45 minute drive of Orlando. So Space Coast is also one of my top picks, probably side to side as far as both of those go. My third pick, and it's only going to be because, as I mentioned, everybody focuses on South Florida. So they go to South Florida first, then they realize that they'd rather be in someplace a little quieter, a little more mellow. That doesn't mean that they don't still buy, they don't still rent in South Florida. And that destination is Miami. Now, when I say Miami, the Miami Metroplex includes Fort Lauderdale and West Palm Beach, which is where I am. So anywhere in that South Florida, Miami Metroplex is a good place to invest. And there are different strategies for different cities and different parts. So certain parts of Miami, you would want to buy a single family house if you were going to invest. Like if you were going to do something just west of Miami and say Little Havana, you're looking at single family houses more so than condos if you're going to be downtown. So different strategies, but whenever you go to a market, you're going to figure out what those strategies are. Right now, the Miami Metroplex area, I think, is about 8 or 9 million people, and it is growing. It is supposed to triple, quadruple in size in the next 10 years as well. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on the Miami market because that kind of goes without saying. Being the largest area in Florida, it makes sense to be there, just like Houston being the 4th largest city in America, and Texas makes sense to be there. Cities that we don't want to overlook, and they're booming, is Fort Myers. Fort Myers is on the West Coast. It is on the Gulf Coast. Beautiful, beautiful area. It is exploding, and it is exploding with retirees. Retirees have lots of expendable income. Great place to do flips. Sarasota, which is just north of Fort Myers, exact same scenario. The Tampa, St. Petersburg, Clearwater area is a huge, huge destination. It's a beautiful area. A lot of things going on as far as different businesses in those areas. A great area to consider as well. Gainesville is home of the University of Florida. That is a good spot to be, just for the same types of reasons that we'd be in Austin, because the university is so large, has so many people coming and going, not just students, but support staff, just the entire economic situation that revolves around a university. Gainesville is always a great place. Now, one thing that we should do a show on, Bill, is university and college rentals, buying properties for that specific strategy. And I know a lot of people, and this is something that I've worked with investors before, they will buy, and you've seen this before yourself, they'll buy a condo or a house or something like that near a university, let their child stay in that for the 3, 4, 5, 6 years that they're in school. They will keep that and continue to rent it out to students for perpetuity. This would be a good market for that. UT would be a good place for that. So Gainesville, for the purpose of the University of Florida. Tallahassee is the state capital. Same reasons that you would invest in Austin again, you would invest in Tallahassee. Tallahassee is not a giant city, but it is a big enough city that there are plenty of rental opportunities, plenty of flip opportunities as well. Tallahassee is an old city. There's a lot of old houses that you can get in old neighborhoods that are just look great, that you can flip. What's that? And you've got Florida State. Jacksonville is right on the water. You've got a harbor in Jacksonville. It is a large city. A lot of people, Jacksonville, just no one, it's off so many people's radar just because I have no idea why. It is a great city. It is a pretty city.
Which is crazy.
What's that?
It is the largest city in America area-wise.
Really? I didn't know that. But,
yeah. So you got St. Augustine, that's the oldest. Right next to it, you got Jacksonville, which by land mass is the largest city in America.
And it really is a pretty city. You have got a beautiful stadium downtown. You've got all these great bridges leading into downtown. It is a very spread out city. You've got a downtown area, you've got a harbor district, you've got a marina district, and you've got a Jacksonville beach area that is just off the hook with entertainment. There are clubs, there are restaurants, there are all kinds of interesting things. It's really crazy because in the circles that Bill and I hang out with, we really never hear about people talking about Jacksonville as a place to invest. It is a good, strong market, and probably because it is overlooked so much, might even be a better investment opportunity than most people consider it to be. Lots of businesses in the Jacksonville area. It is very strong as far as companies. And then St. Augustine to the south is America's oldest city. Now, I don't know that you'd want to buy anything necessarily in St. Augustine. It's probably going to be very, very overpriced if you are right in St. Augustine. We're talking about buildings that are 300-400 years old, in St. Augustine. Most of them are on historic register. You're not going to be able to do anything with them if you get them. However, because there are so many people coming to the St. Augustine area, you have lots and lots of people who have to live there for support staff, waiters, waitresses, tour guides, boat captains, everything else. I'm going to go ahead and finish my St. Augustine thread as soon as we come back from this break, because we're getting to that point and I don't want Bill to have to wave me down again. So we'll see you in just a second as we come out on the other side.
Hang with us. We'll be right back. Thanks.
reallykevin.com. Weekly recorded coaching sessions. Learn, grow, find resources, opportunities, and more. You'll find it all at reallykevin.com.
Thank you for watching the Investor Guys podcast.
The Investor Guys podcast will be back shortly.
Absolution X. Limited editions. Lifestyle apparel like none other. Get yours today at absolutionx.com.
Live the resort lifestyle every day with Cayman K. The perfect pieces for every wardrobe. Shop the entire Cayman K collection and find your favorites. Find all our styles at caymank.com.
And we're back with our last segment on Florida. We were just talking about St. Augustine. I'm going to go ahead and wrap that up. St. Augustine Beach, which is just immediately to the south of St. Augustine, is a great place. A lot of people who come to St. Augustine spend a lot of their time in St. Augustine Beach just because they want to go to the beach while they're there. That would be a place I would invest in Airbnb types of strategies, but also apartments, because St. Augustine is one of those areas that sees lots of snowbird activity. A lot of people come in and they will stay for 6 months, and they literally will rent an apartment for 6 months. And then you have an off season of 6 months where you rent that apartment for cheaper to somebody who's local. Moving south to Daytona from St. Augustine. And St. Augustine is not that far from Daytona. Daytona is billed as America's most famous beach. Now, Daytona, I don't know if you've been to Daytona like in the 80s or not, like I was. Okay, I went to college in Ohio, so I would go to Daytona for MTV Spring Break and everything else. Daytona has changed a lot, but it is still a destination city. Anybody who's familiar with Bike Week, like Bill and I know, Bike Week is huge in Daytona. The week that it's Bike Week, everybody is Bike Week, Bike Week, Bike Week. From Bike Week to the next Bike Week, everybody's talking about the next Bike Week. It is that big in Daytona. Daytona has a good boardwalk, beachfront area, lots of restaurants, activities. There's a little tiny mini amusement park there with a slingshot and whatever kind of thing. Beautiful, beautiful beaches, though. Lots of untapped opportunity in Daytona. And Bill and I have had this conversation before. There are literally beachfront lots still available in the Daytona area to build everything from residential to commercial on the beach in the Daytona area. It escapes me why.
You can go back and look in our archives. A couple of months ago, we did a show where Kevin actually showed you properties that he had purchased in the Daytona area and what he bought them for. And then we actually kind of toured those properties. So if that's of interest to you, go back and look in the archives and look at the Daytona purchases. Great stuff. So yeah. I didn't want that to slip by us.
No. And that's what I was getting towards is that whole Daytona area. And again, as the state grows, these opportunities, people are going to snatch these opportunities up, which means the sooner we jump on them, the more ahead of the curve we are. It's going to really suck if we're driving down the road and the lot that we've been looking at, considering making an offer on, gets snatched up by somebody else. But the Daytona area, and even moving forward all the way up into Flagler Beach and Palm Coast and those areas, there are literally great opportunities, perfect buildable lots right on the beach that are just waiting for somebody to grab up and develop. And I wish I had more time and more money, because I would jump on that. They're there. We talked about strategies to try to figure out a way to get more people and more eyeballs on them, but I'm still working on that. Opportunities abound in the state of Florida for the same reasons that they abound in the state of Texas. We've got just thousands upon thousands of people moving into both states every single month, every single day, actually. Sunshine State has got lots of opportunities, like Texas. They second largest medical device industry in the country, and in Florida. It is where most of the companies, whether they're European companies, Asian companies, or American companies, have their Central American offices. So their Central American offices are in Miami. And that's just because they're close to, or sorry, South American and Central American, because it's so close to South America and Central America. Lots of opportunities. It is a ideal place to retire because it has been heaven's waiting room for forever. So, yeah.
You can't not talk about Florida and leave out the Panhandle. Now, you grew up in the north and you went down to Daytona. I grew up in Birmingham, and at
Pensacola,
spring break,
Panama
we
Beach.
went to the Panhandle, Panama City, Fort Walton Beach, Destin, Sandestin, Pensacola, all of that whole area there. And I look at the Panhandle, when you look at that, I kind of look at that all the way across Mississippi. So you look at, when you start looking at Destin, Fort Walton, and you start going back west of there, you got all of that. If you get into Alabama, you get into Orange Beach, you get into Mississippi, and you get into all of the Gulf Shores, and what else is over there, all the way till just about Louisiana. All of that has that incredible beach area. And when people come down to the Panhandle of Florida and they get that Gulf beach, they get the white sugar sand, they get the Caribbean blue water, they go, oh, this is where I want to be.
Yeah.
Great places to buy. You can buy incredibly cheap relative to the to the east coast of Florida. You can buy really cheap in the Panhandle there, and on into Alabama, into Mobile and Orange Beach and all of those areas. But take a look at that, because that's great second home, B&B, all those kind of opportunities. And then again, just like you were mentioning about many of the areas in Florida, great rental market from a standpoint of all of these cities have to have what we refer to as support staff. They have to have people that are delivering day-to-day services for you and I. And so that helps to make for a strong rental market. So you have the vacation rental market, but then you also have the day-to-day rental market, and they go hand in hand. If you've got strong vacation time, you're going to have strong day-to-day rental as well. Again, because we have support staff that needs to live there. So don't forget the Panhandle there, brother.
And we're going to wrap up in a minute, but I wanted to talk about one more thing. Everybody I've been talking to where we are now are talking about the season starting. And it's like this thing that's coming. In November, traditionally, is the start of snowbird season. So the economy will literally 5, 6, 7, even 10 times what it was over the summer. Now, we have strong economies in the summer, but literally we get invaded like a plague of locusts during the winter time with snowbirds. And it's just amazing to see the difference between being able to get a seat in a restaurant during the summer and having to sit and wait in a line because there's just that many more people here. It is actually worth getting a rental just to rent it for half the year, even if it sits empty for the other half of the year, because of the significant amounts of rent that snowbirds are willing to pay. They're coming from New York, where they're paying $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 or more a month for a small apartment, and they're coming down here and they're renting a place for $2,000 that would probably go for $900 if it wasn't for being the up season. So absolutely worth looking into vacation rentals anywhere in the state of Florida. We are going over, we could probably talk about Florida and Texas for shows and shows and shows, but that's why we do the buyers events. We actually have 4 days to cover each one of those cities that we're in. Keep an eye out on our website at investorguyspodcast.com for upcoming buyers events, because we've got some coming up in the Florida area as well in 2021. Bill, I'll see you on the other side, and we've got a final show on strong markets that's going to be all about one city. I'll talk to you in a little bit.
Thanks for being with us on the Investor Guys podcast. We will see you guys next time.
Thank you for tuning in to the Investor Guys podcast. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Don't forget to subscribe and stay updated on the latest trends and insights in the world of real estate investing. Also, don't forget to check us out and see all of our episodes at theinvestorguyspodcast.com. Email us, contact@investorguyspodcast.com. Remember, the key to financial success lies in staying informed and taking action. Stay tuned for our next episode, and until then, happy investing.